Cameron van der Burgh, when was the point for their realization, like, okay, I can actually make a career out of this?
My dad said to me, look, man, if you haven't made it, he's like, you will stay in my house and you will study. And so you can swim, but like swimming is not the main thing for you.
Cameron van der Burgh is one of the best swimmers to ever come from South Africa. He was consistently one of the best swimmers in the world for over a decade.
He has set multiple world records and won gold and silver medals at the Olympics. Now he is taking on his next challenge in finance.
What was your hardest moment, and was there a time where you considered taking a different path?
I think the closest to that probably would have been 2014. You look at how many days left on Earth you potentially have, and you just plot it out and you look at it like little dots, how many you've lived and how many have left. It's fucking terrifying.
What is your definition of success?
The most important decision you probably do make in your life is who you marry. How you define your success in life should never be
Guys, this is a brand new podcast, and the goal is to interview the most iconic figures in sport and health from around the world. But I need to ask you guys a big favor to please like and subscribe, because it would make a huge difference to the size of this podcast, and ultimately, the bigger the podcast gets, the bigger the guests. Enjoy this episode. Cameron van der Burgh, thanks for coming on the show. It's great to have you.
Hey, buddy. Been a while since we chatted, so it's really great to reconnect again.
What does life look like for you now? I mean, obviously, you've been retired a few years.
Well, it's still as exciting as what it used to be. Although just the excitement comes from different places. I'm married now. I've got 2 kids, beautiful, babies that I've been very blessed with. That'll keep me on my toes. I can actually hear the one screaming in the background already. I guess she's not getting what she wants at the moment with the grandparents. I've retired from swimming. Moved over to London, and I began my career in finance. As an analyst and then a portfolio manager at one of the world's biggest hedge funds. So my life is extremely different, but like I said, just as exciting at the same time. A little bit colder, unfortunately. The London weather definitely doesn't beat South Africa and the rest of Europe. But it's also been a very good place for me, and won my Olympic gold medal that side. My kids were born that side, so London will always have a special place in my heart. It's a unique place to be, I think, where you have top achievers in every discipline always coming there, whether it's there in New York or Dubai is becoming obviously one of the big hubs. But I love being in these places where you get to interact with people at the highest level of their profession, or culture or sport or arts or whatever, and there's something for everyone there. So
was that always the plan? I mean, because obviously going from a professional athlete to being a financial analyst is quite a big jump. Was that sort of always something on the cards, or when did that sort of come about?
Well, I think in hindsight, the cards were always there. Before I actually became a professional swimmer in the last 2 years of school, here in South Africa, we had something called the JSE Schools Challenge. And so you got like a paper portfolio. You traded for, I think it was about 6 months, which was reflected on the real economy or the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And I won that 2 years in a row, grade 11, grade 12.
Wow.
And earned a nice little, I think it was like 20,000 Rand at a time. So by the time I finished school, I had about 40,000 Rand that I was investing and playing with of real money, and doing quite simple strategies that I'd learned, just like Googling kind of these like simple like ex-div carry trades, relative value trades. And, in hindsight, really got quite lucky, I think, relative to what I know now. But, that really sparked the interest and eventually led to me studying economics, and then later another pivotal part was being picked up by Investec, which is South Africa's premier private bank. Of course, you would also know we shared the sponsorship, and that's where where we met, and they were managing a portion of my money, and it sort of came down to me asking them, like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And sitting with a couple of the guys, and that just, it was sort of something that always really piqued the interest. And then, I think post swimming, I had tried something else in marketing for a bit, but it just didn't seem to be my calling. And
was that Touch 58?
That was Touch 58, yeah. and and that just sort of it wasn't in the end, the calling. That's something that I got up every day and was like, yes, I really want to go do this kind of thing. And but quite quickly sort of became friends with a lot of those guys, and as I say, a lot of my strategy also with swimming was always about like I was always open to trying new things, and if it worked for me, I'd include that in my arsenal of skills, or create an adaptation. And again, I think that's just with everything in the world, and you'd probably know the same, right? It's like you see somebody do something and some technique, and you give it a try, and does it work for you? Does it not? Could you improve upon it? Can you modify it? Why should we reinvent the wheel? And it comes back to that thing. I think also for me is like I am never scared to ask for help. So many people think that just because you're in an individual sport, you did it all alone, but like everyone knows that you don't do these things alone. You have a huge team of people that you rely on, and that got you where you are, and also and outside of the team, it's just again like all those people that came before you. You're building off of what they had done. And the nice thing that I had heard this quote is really beautiful actually, where it's like, in like the timeline of civilization, like what part are you playing? Because we all like have come along this huge lineage, right? And like we're here right now. Like what part are we playing for the next generation? Like we can't do it all, but like we can do something. We're doing some part, and then it goes on. And so that I think is a really like eloquent way in life, but and whether that's like how you're doing it for your family, for sport, for your professional life, there's a lot of different ways you can put that into.
I find it's very fascinating, the the connection also, as you touched on there, with sport and business, and how a lot of the same traits apply across the board. And I feel like if you know what it takes to be a professional athlete, you can often, you've got what it takes to also make it in business as well. Because I mean, it's a lot of, determination, work ethic, and sort of, I think that's the biggest thing between the people that make it and don't make it, that they give up too easily.
Yeah.
Especially in a sport like swimming or downhill mountain biking, it's they're not the rugbys and golfs, and so you have to be creative and to be able to make a good living out of it. It's not as easy as some of the other pathways. I mean, on the swimming side, what let's maybe rewind it back a little bit. Where did that start? Why swimming?
Well, swimming chose me, to be honest. I think which I think a lot of guys have. I mean, I've only heard of a couple really talented guys, where it's like AB de Villiers or someone. They're like, oh, I could have played rugby or cricket, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Could pick and choose, kind of thing. For me, I as a youngster, I did all the different sports at school, but swimming I just really excelled at. And I think when you excel at something, it's kind of a compounding effect where you do well at something, you start doing well at it, makes you want to work harder at it. You do well again, you improve, and then it's a flywheel, right? And unless you don't have the work ethic, of course, then it sort of ends there. But I think for most guys at an international level, everybody's talented, but it's the guys that are obviously willing to put in the work as well, and actually put that in. But swimming for me, I think it kind of came down to where I was always in like some kind of a different sport, and I was very hyperactive as a young kid, and I was on Ritalin, and unfortunately it wasn't the medication, I would say, wasn't really great for me. It really kind of zombied me out, and I think killed my personality. And so the idea was that my mom thought there must be another way, and so that's how I picked up all these different sports. And then from that, swimming slowly came from like once a week to twice a week to full time, and had gone from also like sort of high school swimming to a club, and that sort of natural progression, and then you eventually work your way on. But yeah, it's just, I mean, incredible, I think, just as a youngster to be in the situation to to be in a club or in a professional sport of some sorts, because it just gives you such a lovely like sense of community and teaches you so many great skills in life. I mean, I'm a big advocate for that, to really push kids outside of school sport into like a proper sport as well. Not a proper sport, but you get it as in like a proper club, because
Yeah.
that again, like it really comes down to then being you have squad mates and you held responsible. It's like, oh, why weren't you training yesterday? Like what was going on, kind of thing. So you also form that sense of community and belonging and dedication, and that really builds you up for life. And even if you never became a professional athlete, just those skill sets, as you had mentioned, rightly so. Like I think a lot of professional sportsmen, and especially I do find individual sportsmen do exceptionally well, because you have to just figure out a lot of stuff by yourself. In a team environment, your flight tickets are booked for you, training is scheduled for you. You don't have to think about a single thing. Where as an individual, you start out in a group environment, but quite quickly as you progress, you have to tinker and tailor made things for yourself, because you are the individual relative to just being like a big team. And you're booking your own flights and you're making your own plans and you're fundraising and you're doing things. So it's a little entrepreneurial. It's very entrepreneurial actually, in a sense. And you can think of yourself as a business. You're marketing yourself, you're fundraising, you're allocating your capital, like i.e. your time and your training. What's your return on investment? You're saying no to certain opportunities. You're managing risk, risk, i.e. like don't go out on a Friday night because you're going to get drunk. You can't train on Saturday. So like that's a risk you can't take, so there's certain different things I think that are very comparable to a business.
Yeah, I find that, it's very interesting, and I think that's helped me tremendously, as I'm sure it did you, being in an individual sport. And obviously, so there's a similarity there. So in mountain biking, although it's an individual sport, a lot of the professionals, they have, they've got teams, and then it's like being employed. You've got a team manager, they've got a chef and a masseuse and a travel agent, and everything is done for them, which I guess for performance is a good thing, but in terms of your life, and life experience and job experience, it's definitely not a good thing. And I feel like I've done it always on my own and always had my own sponsorships. And as you said, had to arrange, all your travel and all your marketing and building your own personal brand, essentially. I think that has a huge benefit, for people later down the line.
Yeah, no, I think you did exceptionally well as well, considering, swimming is a mainstream sport, I would definitely say. And so I think it was easier for us, relative to downhill mountain biking. I think it doesn't get as much publicity, shall we say, and like time on media. So I think, the job that you did was quite ahead of the pack at that day, when even like social media was still in the beginning, because, you really had to find unique ways to go out and get yourself sponsorships and get yourself seen. So I always admire that about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, obviously we met, as you touched on earlier, that we met through Investec. At the time, that was a very sort of out there sponsorship. No one, especially for a sport like mine. So which was good for me. Obviously, kept me being able to do the sport, but I mean, even swimming, it's not I wouldn't say it's the most lucrative sport. So that was something I actually wanted to chat to you about as well. It's sort of how you, how you were able to approach that, and because you had a few, very big partnerships, like Audi, Investec, as we touched on. How were you able to sort of secure those, and did you have some help? Do you have a management team, or did you do that yourself?
I think, company likes good company. And, I was fortunate. I think my first sponsorship was Tag Heuer, which was non like monetary. It was just like watches, right? And it was, like a family-run business. That was and they kind of seem to do this for a lot of guys in the industry, which is great. And so, you kind of picked up the first one, and then Investec came along as my second. And then from then on, I had a manager in the beginning, but the management team didn't do very well. And what often I had found in the end was that I was the one that was networking and
Mm.
bringing all the deals, and they would just like take a fee, right? And so in the
Mm.
end, I had a friend of mine, Rake Neethling, who managed just the negotiation for me. And so I would say, look, I found a lead, Samsung, and I've developed a relationship, but I need you to negotiate the deal, because it's a little bit more difficult. It's very personal, obviously, when you're saying,
Mm.
hey man, give me R1 million, and they're like, no, you're worth 200K, and
Yeah.
your ego is kind of, but it's just as an example, right? And then you kind of
Yeah.
obviously get to a point. So I think the negotiation is better if you're removed from that, because it's not so personal. And so that's the tactic that I'd employ. But yeah, I mean, at the end, most of those sponsorships I'd source myself. And again, just from networking, going to different events and meeting people, and yeah, putting yourself out there. And so again, like, it's like this marketing thing, right? Putting yourself out, like leads,
Mhm.
getting out, and also a lot of these sponsorships, it wasn't like I would meet somebody that night and that would have led to the sponsorship. I would meet someone, stay in touch with them, meet them again probably, and like within over a year, build some kind of a relationship,
Mhm.
and then this would sort of develop into a potential sponsorship. And that also is like, maybe 1 out of 10 leads to that, right? So again, I sound like a sales guy here, but yeah, which I'm definitely not. But it's something. But and out of that, I mean, still today, I keep in touch with a lot of these people. It wasn't just like a purely transactional
Mhm.
um, sort of relationship. And so, when I come back, I still make sure that I go and see the guys at Audi or Investec. Unfortunately, a lot of the guys have moved on now. So like a lot of the old guard that I knew he's gone, but
Mhm.
still, stay in touch, or we'll play golf or do something. And so yeah, it's important to do that kind of thing, I think. And that really helped me, yeah, be able to build the portfolio of companies. But I think, the other side to it as well that people don't think about is that, it's very easy, I think, in South Africa to go and, try and compare oneself to an international like market. And I think you need to have a good idea, a good handle of like, what is your real value, where's your market, and like, where do you play into? And I
Mhm.
think, the connection or the breakdown with a lot of times is that people might think that their market is bigger than what it is,
Mm.
and they demand a certain, maybe, salary or monetary value, and they think that this is it, and the company just doesn't. The companies don't see it that way. So you also need to understand, where's your value add, where does it sit, where is your market, what can you do, and then that's where it comes around, where you can find unity, or the common ground, shall we say.
When, I mean, obviously, you sort of rely on these sponsorships to be able to be a professional. When was
Mm.
the point for you, that you realized, or had was there a realization like, okay, I can actually make a career out of this?
Well, I was very lucky. I think what was it now? I graduated 2006 school, and my dad said to me, look, man, I'll fund you for 2 years till 2008. There's Olympics, and then you're on your own. And so I was like, all right, cool. Well, not on your own, but he's like, then if you haven't made it, he's like,
Mhm.
you will stay in my house and you will study. And so you can swim, but like, swimming is not the main thing for you. And it
Yeah.
was a very fair deal, right? You're gonna be 20 years old, and obviously, he just couldn't fund me forever. So it came around. 2007 came along. I got a bronze at World Champs, got a little bit of money there, and then 2008 came along, went to Olympics, made it. Didn't make a final, came 11th. And then we were looking quite seriously at going to do NCAAs, because that's like a full scholarship paid, obviously, in the
Mhm.
States. And so I was pretty close to signing a deal to go to Cal Berkeley. And then what happened was, I went to this thing called the World Cup. And the World Cup is like the ATP, like, kind of tennis tour, like all these
Yeah.
stops around the world, and you earn like money, and there's a grand prize at the end. And I was in great shape at the Olympics, but I just didn't perform as well as what I could have, just for various different like mental reasons. I wasn't ready, I wasn't prepared, like mentally, but physically I was on fire. And so I took that form and I rolled it into the World Cup, and I won the World Cup, and I walked away with like close to $160,000 at the time,
Wow.
and you're like
Okay.
19 years old. And so from that, I was like, oh my God, my dad even turned around and was like, all right, I'm going to charge you rent now. Like, you earn more than what I did in the last 5 years, kind of thing. So, and obviously accepting that money means that you can't go to the NCAA because then you're a professional. So there was the point where you had to decide. And, and I was breaking I broke like 6 world records that year, at this, World Cup. So, and the following year, that was 2008, 2009, went on to then become the world champion. And so, the decision was made that, I was doing quite well already, and I didn't need to move to the US, but that was the first, obviously, time that I was like, all right, this is can actually do this quite properly. And yeah, 2009, then started getting my proper first sponsorships and so on.
And how did things sort of change, after you have broken, for example, the world record or winning an Olympic gold? Did your life sort of alter dramatically, or did things sort of, because I mean, as an outsider, I think you always think people look at the Olympics and they're like, oh, it's the pinnacle of any sport, and it's sort of, these superstars. So I think it would be interesting to know from your perspective.
I think life only changes for in my opinion, for Olympic athletes if you win Olympic gold. And I was world champ 2009, 2010 double Commonwealth champion, 2011 world champ again, and then the big one was Olympics, right? Coming with gold and a gold and a world record there, first medalist for South Africa. And that year we won 3 gold medals. It was in the rowing, Chad in the 200 butterfly, myself, and that was the point where everything changed. I think before I was kind of still like a local, I don't know, like micro niche celebrity, if I could kind of put it that way, or like people knew who you were, but so small kind of thing relative to then Olympics come along, and you just, you get home and there's like 5,000 people at the airport waiting for you, and you're on these buses and like cruising around, and like that was really, really like the big point. And it makes sense because I actually remember myself just watching the first like real memory that I have of swimming was watching Penny Haynes at the Olympics in 2004 and in 2000. And then like the next really big one was like watching Rake and Roland and the other guys in the relay. And so, outside of that, unfortunately, swimming is a bit of a you can say, semi-professional. It's not easy for a lot of guys to unfortunately sustain a living, especially the way that the current federation in a lot of countries is, not only South Africa, but their guys are paying to go to a world championships yourself. Like what you can't call that a professional sport if you're paying yourself to go to a world championships. So yeah, I think that's the unfortunate truth. And you can only really say that it's a professional sport once every 4 years, and so that is a sad thing. And so but yeah, so anyway, back to the question, obviously, is that since that happened, then that was a big turning point for me. And I think life definitely changed, definitely for the better. And I was very fortunate enough, and just like, I think the coolest thing now is reflecting back on it. Me, like, I was at Tokyo this year, sorry, at in Paris this year, and I watched Tatiana win her gold medal, and just seeing it, like, as a spectator, like appreciating it, and like seeing what she did, it was like really incredible, because you can appreciate then what you did as like a semi removed now from that environment. And the amount of times that it's so great, like, I get back here in South Africa, and I'll see people and they'll be like, hey, I've got this photo of you from, like, because what, I won gold now, say 12 years ago. And they'll be like, I've got this photo when I was this kid, and it's like this little like swimmer, and like they want to like do a then and a now, and they'll like do the next photo of it, and then obviously the photo now, and it's just really great to see that kind of the way you're like, wow, you actually, as you mentioned, like you inspired a couple of people to get in the water, and you hear these stories, and whilst not all of them are still swimming now, but you just see that at that point you meant something to them, and you inspired them to do something. And that's just like a really great feeling to have, and like you're so privileged. Like, it's just, like I said, not how you define your success in life should never be, based on this money game that everybody thinks it
Mm.
is. And it should really be around the quality of your life and the lives that you've touched, and how you're going to be remembered and stuff. Because like, I mean, I work in finance, and I just see the craziest things, and this money game doesn't make people happy at all. There's just like never ends kind of thing. So
It's interesting, I feel like I've had a similar realization as well. When you look at something after the fact, when you involve, when you're the athlete, and you even when you won Olympics, it's like sometimes it's hard to really appreciate what you've just done. I mean, obviously you're very happy at the time. It's this big goal, but I feel like we're so driven, for the next thing, and it's always okay. I want to win. I want to win the world championships now. I want to win the next event. It's always, and only
Yeah.
afterwards you kind of look back and you're like, wow, like that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah. It's true. In the moment, you don't appreciate as much than post fact and reminiscing. I guess it's a middle age thing that we could say. You're looking back on your career, but it's great to be able to do that and have the good memories and the good times. And I just think no one I think ever appreciates it enough in the moment. I think that's like what I could say ever. I just like, especially that life as an athlete is like one of the most, we are the most lucky people in the world, because like you're literally doing something that brings you the most amount of joy that people do as a hobby, like for fun. You're doing it as a profession. And the unfortunate thing is sometimes it does turn into a profession, and you forget that actually this is actually like something that you love and that you start as a hobby. And we are just so lucky to have lived that life.
It's I think it's very true. I also think not just in sports and stuff, but I often have this question about happiness, and people have different views on what makes people happy. And I think whether you're an athlete or you're someone that's starting a business or something, you've got this big goal and you think, okay, when I reach this goal, then I'm going to be happy, But then often, even when you do reach the goal, whether that's winning Olympic gold or making a certain amount of money or building up a certain business, then you get there and you're happy for a short time, but it's very short lived, and you're like, okay, now what, and that can be sometimes difficult to deal with. And I have actually seen athletes that have, moved on to other things because they've gotten to their goal, and then they think, it's sort of like a bit, it's not as great as they thought it was going to be, or they want a new challenge. When you were, I mean, from the outside, it's very easy to look at an athlete and think, oh, they live this perfect life, and they're on the cover of a magazine, and they're making money, and they're a celebrity, and it's sort of like this dream scenario. But I mean, I know, and I'm sure you know, that there's a lot more behind the scenes than people realize, and it's not as easy as they think. And when you were sort of in this process of becoming you, was there a time where what was your hardest moment, and was there a time where you considered taking a different path?
I think the closest to that probably would have been 2014. I'd won Olympic gold, and that was like my main goal. And I just never set another goal. And it was always like, all right, I was going to win Olympics, right? And then like, what do you do after that? And so it was like, oh, I'll just keep swimming and like go to the next one. And then obviously, I think what had really happened to me was that I just like, you came along with like sponsorships and fame and so on. And then 2013 went through and it was all right. And then 2014, I got to the Commonwealth Games, and I just felt very, non-motivated. I think I didn't have a clear idea of like what I was working towards, and I ended up just being at the Commonwealth Games, like just really hating it. And I still performed like well. I think I got a gold and a silver, but it was just like the most unhappy I'd ever been, because I just felt numb. It was like it was just a job, And then you'd lost this like passion, like what I'd said, like no one appreciates it as much in the moment. And so, in the build up to Olympics and so on, like it was always like, you're still this kid and you had this dream, and then you were working. So you still like had this kind of, huge push and drive to something. And then all of a sudden, as you said, like it's accomplished, and then just never had reset the goal. And then, so you just didn't have this like driving force to do something. And then you were just in the motion and just doing things and doing them because you were just doing them. And then, and I think that was the saddest point for me. And I took a break, like 3 months off. I spoke quite a bit to my sports psychologist that I'd used for 2012. And and it was definitely like touch and go, whether I was like, all right, am I going to retire or not, unless I could find that motivation. And it was just purely a goal setting exercise, right? Just resetting, what do you want to do, work to 2016, and just recalibrated. And I think that was a big issue, not to set goals. And it was a good learning process for me, because I every year now religiously, like, I go and I plan my year ahead, and I set my goals in like small things. And it's like, I set goals now for like my kids, being like, I want to do this with my kids this year, like, or I want to do this with my wife this year, and I want to do this professionally, and I want to do that. And so I have these like things, and then I'll just write it and I put them up on the wall. And I've got like, this calendar, and like I can just see like the year ticking down. And so that is like showing me like, time is moving, and you have these things that you need to be working towards. And you might have a bad week, you might have a good week, you work, but as long as you're sort of looking at it and you're driving towards something, relative to just aimlessly like moving through life. Because I'm sure if you ever done one of these like exercises where it's like, you look at how many days left on Earth you potentially have, or how many weekends left you have on Earth, and you just plot it out, and you look at it like in like little dots, how many you've lived and how many have left. It's like, it's fucking terrifying. It's like, oh my God, and so, or how many summers you have left, or how many, like how many times are you gonna, like all these silly things, how many times are you gonna see your best friend again, how many times are you gonna see your parents again. And so I think when you just put everything into this perspective of like a timeline, and set like goals towards that then just really invigorates this like drive for like life and like accomplishment. And just comes back to that conversation we had, is like, when you're a kid and you do a professional sport, or you do a sport at a club level type thing, you're working towards goals, you're working towards competitions, you learn that skill at such a young age. And that just can really set you up for life then.
It's interesting. You said things now, regarding it being a job and feeling like you're just going through the motions. And I've heard that actually multiple times from various athletes, and including myself. So it is, I think it's an easy sort of trap to fall into. Even, you think, you look at an athlete and you think, oh, everything's perfect. But again, it's, with the goals, that's very interesting. I had exactly the same experience. 2017, I had my best season, but actually I was probably the most unhappy I was in my whole career, which was really weird to think. But it even when you're performing well, you just can just feel like it's not really, you're not passionate. It's just like, okay, well, I know what I need to do to perform. And then get the job done. And
but I think it's just what they said, is like, you when you're at the top of your game, it's like, what's next, and then same with trading, same with everything, like. And I always have this like devil on my shoulder, where it's like, as soon as things are going well, I'm like, oh my God, it's coming, something's coming, like, so, like, don't fuck yourself, like, something's gonna come for you now, and like, and so it's almost like, it always, Murphy's Law, feels like, when things are there, you don't appreciate them. And I think for a lot of us, we expect the good times to be normal, but actually, like, life is not always good, right? And so like, we expect the baseline to just be like always up there, and then when we get up there, then we're not like, oh my God, this is amazing. We're like, oh, this should be normal, this actually should be normal. So then you don't appreciate it. But actually, like, normal is coming with, ebbs and flows of challenges, and then being below normal is obviously like really terrible. But that's, it's just something that I've always thought about, is that when we're up there, we just think that's the new normal, so then we don't appreciate it. Then you sort of fall back to normal, and then when you're at normal, you think that's really bad, and then you get depressed, and so it's more about just that perspective of really appreciating when you are there, man. But how did you get out of that like sort of feeling of that?
Well, to be honest, I was kind of forced out of it, I guess, because very shortly, so my best season 2017, and 2018. Then I had a very big injury, and I was probably at the best point of my career, but I was actually quite unhappy, just through other factors. I'd had a relationship that didn't work out, and sponsorship wasn't going well at that point. But I don't know. And then I was out for a year, which, even though it was really difficult to deal with, it was probably the best thing for me in a way mentally, because it really remotivated me, and I had so much time. When you have time off, as you have so much time to really contemplate and realize what's important to you. And unfortunately, I came back and had another severe injury right away. So then I had a bit more time off than I'd wanted to. It was like 2 years out. But the weird thing was that it showed me that the real important things in your life, because before that, racing was everything to me, and it's the only thing that I really thought about. And I think to a degree that's similar with a lot of athletes. But then when I was forced to have that break, I realized, that this is just, I enjoy it, but it's just a sport, and it's just, it's not more important than your health, your family, your circles around. It doesn't matter if you have how many trophies you have on the mantle, if you haven't got anyone to share the good times with, and there's no point. So when I actually came back, even though I never quite got to the point I was basically breaking into the top 20 at that point in the world. I never quite got back to that point, but I enjoyed my sport. I enjoyed racing in my career way more the last few years than I did earlier on, even though the results maybe weren't quite what they were. They were close, but which is also sort of, I would have never thought that looking back or looking forward. I would have never imagined that I would have been happy with that. But I think I just learned to appreciate that this is what we do, being professional athletes. It's a privilege, and be able to travel the world and do what you love is ultimate. That's, for me, actually the ultimate goal, was to be able to live this life. And everyone wants to be world champion, everyone wants to be the best, but unfortunately it can only be one, and there's always someone. Even if you get to that point, there's always someone else coming up looking to take your spot.
It's very true.
You when you went into going into the next Olympics, into Rio, and you got silver, right?
Yeah, silver.
And how did that how happy were you with that, after winning gold the previous time?
You, as an athlete, you always want to win, right? And it sucks to get silver after you've got gold, but at that day, on the time, that was the best performance I could have given. And I was beaten by a decent margin. So I couldn't, sometimes there's a good saying where it's you got to be so much better in your competition that no one can put it past you. And that guy beat me by so far that I couldn't be oh, but I had a bad day or whatever, some bullshit, And so in a way, it's kind of, sometimes it was probably in hindsight better, because there was just no excuse to give, not that you need to give excuses, but I just, human nature, you always, think, what about that, or what could I have done better? But, it wasn't an easy season overall. It was played with a bit of overtraining, a little bit of injury, just age, just things were not, how do I say, things didn't fall into place quite as well as they did in 2012. But again, still, the fact that I went that time, considering everything, I was quite close on the time that I won in 2012, and so I was very proud of that effort. And I think looking back, at the time, again, you don't appreciate it, but like looking back now, you're like, hey man, you've won a gold and Olympic silver. Like that's pretty badass, like appreciate that, Not many people get to do that kind of thing, And so, and also in between, also like I was every year on the, from 2008, from 2008, was it 2008? No, from 2007. From 2007, at every international final that I ever swam at, I always won a medal. At every final, every
Crazy.
single final, I
That is a
always,
hell of a stat.
yeah, I always podiumed. And I only saw that fact like somebody, one of these like crazy fans had sent that out, and then I was like, oh my god, like if I'm in the final, I'm getting a medal. Like that's it, kind of thing. And the only time that I didn't was 2008 when I didn't make the final. So 2007 World Champs, bronze. 2008 Olympics, didn't make the final, didn't get a medal. But then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, no, up to 18. Every single race I made the final, and I finaled so I was winning 2 medals at every majors, Commonwealth, etc. And so when I look back on it like that again, like I said, just I was always consistent. I was always up there. I was always doing what I could, and I just I really am so blessed. I really look back and I love I had the best time, man. I had the best, and especially towards the end, because I knew it was coming to an end. I think 2018 was one of my favorite years ever. I went to Commonwealth Games, and again, I think this is the sad thing again, right? Because it's coming, and we had such a great community at the time. Like me and the boys, I was the senior, and I was really investing a lot of time on these guys, and it was I knew rocking up because I was going to retire in 2018, so I was kind of focusing a lot more on the 50, not on the 100. And so when I did the 100, got a bronze. And then the big thing was the 50 for me, and I was racing NMP2, who's my big rival, right? And this guy's was unbeaten since 2016 then. And rocked up for the final with the boys on the bus with the music. It was my little entourage, little posse, rocked up, and I beat Adam in that race and just went fucking bananas on the lane rip, and I was screaming, going crazy, and the guy and all the boys on the stand next to the pool, all taking the shirts off, and they're like, yeah. I was it's crazy story, and it's just one of the most vivid memories that I have. And it was actually really crazy because Adam at that time had gone through exactly what I had gone through in 2014 at the Commonwealth Games, and he saw me obviously beating him, but the community that I had and this really incredible bond and experience that he didn't have. And it was he's has told us multiple times in the media that was his low point of his career, seeing that being beaten, but B, feeling super numb, B, and then just feeling what am I doing, there's no community, no nothing. And so yeah, those last years of my career actually was some of the most enjoyable, just because of the community we created and that realization. And I guess as you get older, you get wiser and you pick up these things. And I guess it comes back to that thing of what we said is just I ask so many questions to so many people. Why reinvent the wheel? These guys have done it, they've been there, they've seen it. And as you said, right, you've heard so many athletes say this XXXX, we're all going through the same thing, at different times, in different kind of positions in our life or this, and maybe a slight iteration or this or that. But if you just ask the questions and listen and are able to try and learn, there's always an analogy to what you're going through. Somebody's been through somewhere.
For sure. And I mean, hearing this, it's the same as what I felt. Last year was maybe my favorite year ever, and that was the last year that I was competing. And I think it's this, this perspective that you get, and you kind of finally realize how rad it is, and this experience. Wow, this is cool. Why was I so down on myself, for coming second? It's you start to appreciate it more. I mean, obviously you mentioned you got medals at pretty much every final that you made. What was the best moment for you overall? I'm assuming 2012.
Yeah, for sure. 2012, childhood dream, realization, Olympic champion, world record, da 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 da. It's just can't beat it. And I think, it was just so special, man. It's just really, 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 really cool, really rad. I think I am so fortunate and blessed to have been in a position because so few people are, and so many things just fell into place at the right time. It's like just all like meant to be at the time, and stars aligned and kind of thing happened, right? And I think it shaped my life I mean, obviously it altered the course of my life completely, like radically, right? And so that one moment, with so much hard work behind it, kind of,
Mm.
obviously the opportunity and everything fell into place at the right time, but you had to have done the work. But that one moment just really like is one of the pinnacle defining moments of my life, which is like comparable to, having a child,
Yeah.
or getting married to the right person or whatever. And so I think not many people can realistically say that they have those moments in life where you can like pinpoint that. And that was one of those moments. And so by far will always be like my favorite sporting moment. I mean, there are other moments, as I'd mentioned, like, 2018 beating PD with the community and
Mm.
stuff. That was like really fun. So it was like a fun moment, where it was like, oh my gosh, like this was really incredible, like bit of a revenge, bit of like fun community kind
Mhm.
of thing. But the 2012 was just so like life altering, changed, like I said, the course of my life completely. I mean, the fact that we're having this discussion is pretty much based around that. And otherwise I don't think we probably would be having this discussion.
What you touched on it there, the work behind it. What is what type of how much emphasis did you place on something like diet, for example, and what did your training look like? I obviously not in the swimming world, so I don't know what a typical training schedule would look like for someone like yourself.
Look, we all work hard, right? I think the thing that we just did very well was we worked very smartly, and I
Hmm.
think like I was the first. I was actually, yeah, I was the first guy that the traditional training or racing, shall we say, styles came from the guys who were doing the 200 meters, and then they'd go from the 200 meters down to the 100 meters. So it was like this huge aerobic base, and
Hmm.
like you would race the 100 and the 200 because 50 is not at the Olympic Games. So that was a seen their way. I started my career as a 50-meter swimmer. I was a sprinter and like thoroughbred sprinter, pretty much. And I worked my way up to the 100. But the way that we did it was with obviously quite a bit of hard work. But we were the first, in like most of these events actually to implement this new style where it was like we had this extremely high speed, easy speed, and was able to then to maintain that speed on the second half of the race. So you'd got the fifth. So normally as a sprinter, you got really fast and then you die and then you'd like get taken over. And that
Hmm.
happened to me multiple times in my career until this we radically changed things in 2011 where so I'd like I said 2008 missed the final, 2009 world champ 50 meters, 2010, which is Commonwealth Games, so gold medalist in the 100, sorry, gold medalist in the 50, bronze medalist in the 100. Then 2011 came along, and I think I got two bronzes, and it was like that was like also the moment where like, listen, man, Olympics is next year. There's no 50-meter. Like, you need to change things. And so
Hmm.
we spent a lot of time thinking about it, planning about it, and changed the training to this really like intense, like aerobic, like pretty much as much trying to build up the highest lactate tolerance that you could have. And we would do crazy things like, like put a watt bike next to the pool and like sprint like on a watt bike as hard as you could for like 30 seconds, build up crazy lactate, and then go like jump in and then like swim like 25 meters. And the idea is like on the watt bike, you obviously have a lot of resistance, right? So you have
Yeah.
this huge buildup of lactate, and then teaching your body then to swim or keep moving whilst you have this huge lactate buildup. And so we did a lot of this type of stuff, where people were not doing it before. And I still would remember like Tatiana, like her coach, this guy Rocco, he'd watch us on the side of the pool deck and be like, "What are these monkeys doing?" Like kind of thing, like, because they're really like long distance Tatiana's a 200 meter, like that's their style, and so a lot of these guys were like, what are these guys doing, and we were realistically a lot of, like I said, a lot of resistance training, a lot in the gym, etc. And yeah, and I mean, I went out there and I just crushed the field because like I was just so fast out and I held the pace back, and that was like, I really think it was a huge shift in our sport. And now you don't find any guys that are winning the 200 win the 100. It's always like the inverse, so like 50 up to the 100, just because we have so much speed and we've just learned how to maintain that speed. And so the sport definitely changed from there. But that hard work was also the funnest times. I mean, I'm now 36 and I like go to the gym and I remember how much lactate I could produce, and I could just hold it, and like you'd get out of the pool and your legs were swollen of like lactate, and like, man, I can barely produce it now. I'm like so old, kind of thing. It's like, so you like, I used to love it because I used to like taste the lactate. It was like the idea was like I would, we would, I would sort of train so hard that with my training partners, like I'd get out of the pool and I'd just like crush them and like try and destroy their soul kind of thing. And then I'd like get out the pool and just be like, point at them and be like, yeah, like, come on, like, let's go. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Kind of thing. And so it was just like a mixture of like community, great training partners, like pretty much psycho, like we were psycho, like crazy training and stuff. But you got to be, I really firmly believe that, you got to be on the fringe. That's what I say. Everyone's talented. Like we're all talented, man. Like, everyone's doing things, but you only have a certain, again, like you only have a certain amount of time in the day and a certain amount of like units of energy and etc. right? That you can expel. Like you can only train so hard. And so, but how do you use that in the most intelligent way? And I think we were really pioneers in that. And so, yeah, I mean, it was like a fun time. That's what I say.
I'll keep that in mind for anyone who wants to be a swimmer. I'll tell them, get on the watt bike.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. People don't want to do it anymore. They don't want to do that stuff. It's too hard.
How much, I mean, in terms of volume, how much volume are you doing every week?
I probably do about 60 kilometers a week, somewhere around the 60, 70 kilometers a week. I mean, yeah, maybe in the beginning of the season, towards the end of the season, maybe like 50 Ks, but it was like more intense. 3 gym sessions a week, a running session on the weekend. So I do like a sprint run session on the track.
Interesting.
Just again, like this, sort of transition of like fast twitch fiber into something where there's a little bit more resistance. I mean, if you ever want to see a really funny thing, you watch a whole bunch of swimmers sprinting down the track, like looking like Donald Duck. It's like pretty funny, but it's great. And so, yeah, and just comparable again, right? Like the model back in the day was like, oh, you had to do like 80 kilometers a week kind of thing, 80 to 100. So guys were doing like 16 kilometers a day. I was doing like maybe 10 to 12 at max, right? And so this is why it was quite radically different at the time.
And what about something like diet? Were there any things that these days I feel like it's such a hot topic, all these different things and what's going to make you better, whether it's keto or carnivore or vegan or what?
Yeah, I think I experimented a lot, and I just figured out I mean, when I look back on it, I followed quite a Mediterranean diet. I wouldn't say it's strictly keto, but yes, I did cut out a lot of like pasta bread. Yeah, these are kind of heavy, heavy carbohydrate, like wheaty carbs make me quite bloated and drops my blood sugar level, so I get quite tired. So it was a lot to do with obviously thinking about it, but also the diet. I mean, I remember going to dietitians and them telling you like, oh, you've got to eat 5,000 calories a day and pasta and this and this and this, and so I tried that. It didn't work for me at all, and it was just experimentation of having a good structure of knowing when you have your hard sessions, when you have your easy sessions, like kind of a rough calorific intake, but what are the foods that for me, like, as I digest quite easy, like sort of fats, like, so a lot of avocados, nuts, seeds, peanut butter, bananas, fish, chicken. Obviously, I'd limit when I was really training hard. I'd limit my red meat intake to once a week, just because
Interesting.
it would take a long time for you to break that down in your body. So your red blood cells or your blood. So every time you eat, right, blood rushes to your stomach to break down
Mm.
the food in your stomach, right? And so like fish and chicken, white meat, it takes like 25% of the time of red meat. And so, for instance, if you knew that you were doing a hard session tomorrow, I wouldn't take meat at night because it would take 4 times as long. And in that process, then like once your food is digested, your blood could be rather repairing your muscles. And so, this is kind of the frameworks that we were looking at more back then. And then red meat maybe on a Saturday or something like that. So like a braai, obviously end of the week. So
Yeah, that's interesting. I wasn't. But it makes sense with the red meat side. But geez, now there's, I don't know. I feel like it's quite difficult for the average person now because they look at social media and then every second person is telling them they need to do this and they need to do that, and then one saying
yeah,
meat is bad, the next one's saying plants are bad, the next one, like, it's just like, you know.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's very true. It's very, very true.
in terms of the mental side as well, you mentioned you had a psychologist that you worked with as well.
Hmm.
Did you have that your whole career?
No, that was something that I looked at post 2008. So 2008, got to Olympics, great condition, and just got way too excited. Couldn't put it together. So heats came in fourth, semis finished like ninth, and that time from the heats would have won me a medal. But I
Hmm.
couldn't, like, I got way too excited, didn't sleep, trying to think of trying to get the step ahead, like thinking of the medal before you've done the semifinal. And
Yeah.
so then, started working with someone just how to control those, because, that's such a energy drainer. Thinking about that, it gets you nervous, it makes you, you don't think straight, and it's something very, that I also now use in finance, right? Like trading, when you've got a
Mm.
huge trade on and the trade's going against you and it's not doing well, you know, you quite easy for your emotions to get the better of your logic. And so, just certain different sort of techniques that I've learned in order to regain myself from not thinking too far ahead, just thinking about the moment. What can you control right now?
Right.
Trying to be in the right phase of mind, save, conserve energy. And so that when the big moment comes, that you have the energy and that you haven't expended the energy on nervous energy thinking about these other things. And so, and also just again, like expectation of when you're gonna get there, you're gonna get to the semifinal, you're gonna be ranked maybe first, you're gonna be the favorite for the final. Like, how do we respond to that? How do we respond to pressure from the media? How do you respond for pressure from your family? Because you have people saying, "Oh, you're gonna win tomorrow. You're gonna bring it home for us. Get a goal, get a goal." But as soon as you start thinking about it, you think
Mm.
about the outcome relative to the process. What can you control? And so just, you always got to try and take yourself back. And so that was really valuable to invest in.
How did obviously you got married a few years ago. Now you got a little one as well, and I don't, you just got one,
Mm.
right? Or have you got two?
Two.
You got two. Um, how did how did that? I know for me personally, just being, as I mentioned earlier, that I've gotten married recently.
Mm.
I found that having a relationship actually helped me in general, also with my career. Maybe
Mm.
just giving a sense of peace, and you've obviously got something that's giving you a lot of joy.
Mm.
How did having a family and getting married sort of affect you and your the later parts of your career?
I got married only in 2018, and then I retired. So just
Mm.
kind of, but I'd been with her Wha for like 5 years prior, and, it's very important who you choose to let into your circle, and, she was the right person for you. It can be majorly beneficial if it's the wrong person.
Yeah.
The most important decision you probably do make in your life is who you marry, like
Mm.
realistically, because that whilst we are young, up till you're 30 years old, you're protected by your family and you do your thing and your decisions by yourself. But when you're making a commitment to get married, that's kind of a commitment for the next like 50 years of your life in the prime kind of decision making, family, kids, where you're going to live, what you're going to do. And so marrying the right person is the most important thing, and that sets you up. And like I've just been very lucky in life, man. Like married the right girl, is the most amazing person, most amazing mother. Lucky in sports, been lucky in business. It's just like I just find myself super lucky. It's just like so. Yeah, I mean, can't complain for a second on these type of things. And she's just been like such a rock in the family, man. So yeah.
What's the next on the cards for you in the next coming years?
So yeah, I mean, to wrap up, unfortunately I've got to shoot now, but the big next thing for us is we've been in London for 6 years, and the opportunity set has actually come up now from the business to move to Dubai. So we're going to be relocating to Dubai. So a very welcome move for various different reasons, but the heat obviously and the sun is really sorely missed by me. And I love living in outdoors and active lifestyle, and London unfortunately is not as conducive to that. Where whilst Dubai in the summer is extremely hot and you can't go outdoors, but then most people will leave. So my wife is she's Greek as well, so we normally go to Greece. So kids are going to be based there, and then the rest of the year it's an amazing place. A lot of expats there, a lot of South Africans, and really great work opportunity. And the bonus is that there's 5 flights home to South Africa every single day, and the flights are quite cheap, so I can get in and out of here quite easy now relative to London. And the kids are a bit older; they're quite a bit easier to fly with now. So we're very excited for that, and that's the next big thing for us. So we're looking forward to that.
I know you've got to shoot. I just got one last question for you, which I ask every guest is, what is your definition of success?
My definition of success is waking up and having the drive to do something like that you love every day, and like feeling like you just you want to live for every day. That is success for me, because again, that means you're not constrained by, you're not a slave to like money or some ideology that you think that you wanted to live but you actually don't want to live, kind of thing. If you get up every day and you have this burning desire to live the day, to go like get up, love going to gym, got the time to go to gym, then come home, go to work, spend time with your family, go do something like that. But like if you just live for that, live for those days, I think that's like a definition of success for me, because like I said, life is so flippin' short, man. And if you just like blink, you're gonna miss it. I mean, I'm already 36 and I feel like I'm ancient, and I just want to like really ensure that like your time is well spent, on this earth. It's so quick. So yeah, definition is by default, you're obviously doing the right thing because you have passion for life, and I think that's the most important thing. Yeah. Forget about the money and all this stupid stuff. Like I say, man, it's just like doesn't mean anything, man. As long as you're with good people and you're loving where you are and you're loving what you're doing, like you're successful, you're happy, man.
Couldn't agree more. Cam, dude, this has been amazing. Thanks so much for fitting us in.
Thanks, bud. I really appreciate it, Stefan. Good luck with everything.
Yeah, and you.
If you guys enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And to see more episodes, click the link right up here.
That was iconic.